You're listening to Mystic Lounge with Alan B. Smith. Rebroadcast on the Onyx Network. Thursdays at 11 p.m. Pacific. Fridays at 2 a.m. Eastern.
However you are and whenever you are, welcome to Mystic Lounge. I'm Alan B. Smith. Thank you for joining us tonight for another fantastic episode of High Strangeness. Tonight, joining me is close encounter experiencer Julie Olson. In 1982, she was a part of what I think is fair to call a truly high strangeness event because of the crossroads of activities that this event became. We're talking about material evidence that was collected, psychological, spiritual transformation, and so much more. And in fact, there was evidence that Julie has talked about in the past that was tested but never returned. So there's a lot more to the story. We'll talk about that and a little bit more with Julie in just a moment. As a friendly reminder, if you appreciate Mystic Lounge or Coffee and UFOs podcasts, please check us out on youtube.com/Mystic Lounge. If you are a fan, please comment and rate wherever you listen to your podcast. I'd really appreciate that. And of course, subscribe here on YouTube and click the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming events, because I've got some things in the work that I think you'll really appreciate coming up. Also, I'm really enjoying, I have to tell you, being a New York MUFON investigator. I'm working on case number 3 now. Most likely an explainable anomaly, but a little more work to do there. But I'm enjoying so much, like sinking my teeth into doing the actual work, the investigative work, and the amount of time that you spend on websites like, radar tracking and satellite tracking, checking out maps, checking out the weather, speaking to the witnesses and the experiencers, and trying to bring all this together and be as objective as possible is actually so fulfilling. So I just want to share that with you all. So if you are also considering, going out there in the field and doing some research yourself, consider MUFON or another organization that you can volunteer for and do it, when you can. So that's the great thing about it, that it's not like a full-time job obligation. It's all volunteer work, and it's just something that, all these people in MUFON do for just a passion for these cases, like tonight with Julie Olson. Julie Olson is the author of Dark Secrets and Hidden Lies, the 1982 Willerny UFO case, and she joins us now. Hey, Julie.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. This is fantastic.
Yes.
It's been a little while since I've had an experiencer on the channel. I've been spending a lot of time on the more, no pun intended, mystical aspects of life and spirituality. But what's interesting about this is that there is an element of that in your case.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about who you are and why are you sharing about this now?
Okay. Hello. And I'm going to go, should I start with the sighting at 18?
Sure.
I'll
That
do that.
could be informative.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm from northern Minnesota, but I lived in, the Twin Cities area when I was 18, in a very rural area. And the little rural town that I lived in was called Willerny. And our population then, when I was 18, was 400, probably even less than that, but around 400. And I did my research from back then, and I know, so because I have all this in my book. And I will tell you about what happened with my mother and I and my stepfather. And on February 10th of 1982, my mother and I, and this is a snowy, it was winter and we had a lot of snow. And it was about 10:30 or so that my mother and I went upstairs to go to bed. And at this time, my parents were getting a divorce. So Roland, my father, was downstairs on the couch, and my mother and I slept in which this is really significant too, because my bedroom was out in the hallway, and I have never, this was the first time sleeping in my sister. I have two older twin sisters, and they were gone, and I got to sleep in their room, and my mother slept in that room with me. And like, again, Roland was downstairs, and it was about like 10:30. And like when you're laying there, and if somebody comes in and turns on a light switch in the, you're thinking, oh, you open your eyes, and it's like that. When I opened my eyes, and the whole room was lime green, and I'm like, I wasn't even facing the windows. So there was two windows. The bed was up against the wall where the two windows were, and both my mother and I were not facing the windows. And I woke up first, and I didn't say anything to her, and I turned around, and I kneeled on the bed, and I looked out the window, and I couldn't believe it. Out the window. So we lived on a little tiny hill, and down below in our yard, we had a street light. So if you would add like one more telephone pole on top of that one, that was about the level. So I'm almost eye level, because I'm up on the second floor upstairs window, and I'm almost eye level now with this. It was like a 40-foot long lime green light just hovering out there. And like I said, I kneeled on got on my knees and looked out the window, and I was just staring at it. And I just kind of nudged my mother. I didn't even have to say anything to her. And she got out of the bed, and she walked to the end of the bed and looked out the window, and I said, Mom, and we just both were just paralyzed, just staring at this. And my mother, her first words watching this, and this is even in the paper from back in 1982, my mother said, "Oh my God, Julie, it's the second coming of the Lord." That's what my mother thought. That was
Wow.
her only words, because it was that majestic, that glorious. I mean, we didn't know what it was. You don't think like that when you wake up, you're woke up from this beaming light, and there it is. So we watched this hover for, oh gosh, I would say a good 15, 20 seconds. And then maybe even a little bit longer than that. And then all of a sudden it lowered to like almost 6 feet off the ground. And we're like, okay, what is this doing? Because we're upstairs, and we're looking, we're looking out the bedroom window. Yeah. And now this is lower than what we're looking at. So now we're seeing it from, it's down lower. And so it stayed down there for a few seconds, and then it just kind of did a little bump like this, it kind of did a little shake. And then all of a sudden it shot up really fast, like just up, but it didn't take off. It just shot up. And as it shot up, it shot down these fireballs, and they had like a tail on them. And it didn't come straight out of the craft. It came out at an angle. And back then we had a lot of snow, and even in one of the pictures that you might have, and if you don't, I have it. We had like 2 feet of snow. Minnesota, we get a lot of snow. And so there was on the site, and I'm in a little, there's a picture of me and my mother. And this is the next morning. And the house that you see behind you on the left, the two windows up there, that is the two windows my mother watched this. So you can see this is our yard. And of course, that is one we left undisturbed in the snowbank. We did collect about a half a dozen or a little bit more, and it had a lot of ashes around them. But anyway, when
you say collected one, like when the sparks happened, is that when like pieces came off, or?
No, I never said I collected one. We collected. What do you mean one?
No, that example.
Oh, that one there.
You showing there? Yeah.
Yeah, we already got a bunch of them. And I said, Mom, because, the newspaper came out, and I said, let's just leave one undisturbed so you can just see it in the raw. Just leave it there. And that picture there that you just showed was taken by the journalist from the White Bear Lake newspaper. So we left one undisturbed, and you can see all the ashes around it.
Yeah.
So when these fireballs. I mean, how, this green light is shooting out fireballs and they have a tail on them and they're burning, going into the snowbanks all over, across our street, in the road, in our yard. And they're leaving behind. So, this is midnight when this happened. And these embers that were shot down, we could see where they were because we're looking out that window and we could see a glow here, a glow there, a glow here. And we watched those stay, like just burning, glowing for at least 10, 15 seconds. So we knew where they were, had a good area. Mine said, yes, where they were. That right there is my mother's tip of her shoe. And that is one of the rings or artifacts that shot down that we left undisturbed. And well, that's one of the news clippings up there. I can't read what it says, but I know what it says because I was there. And anyway, but like I said, that's the corner of my mother's shoe.
It says, Julie Werlemy points to the hole burned in the snow near her home last week by an unidentified lime green light. Her mother, June, also looks on. Some remnants left by the light also remain in the hole and near it. These remnants were sent to the University of Minnesota for identification, but they could not be analyzed there. They have been sent to a national center where further attempts will be made to identify the objects. And what was the paper again?
The White Bear Press. That was
White Bear Press. Okay.
Yeah, the White Bear Press. And so, because they came out, the University of Minnesota came out to our house, and we gave them 2 pieces. It was 1 or 2. This was 40 years ago, and they were going to analyze them to try to find out what they were, and they couldn't analyze them. So they sent them off to CUFO's Center for UFO Studies in Chicago, Illinois. And we were so excited that, now the U has them. We were kind of like, oh, when they couldn't identify, well, that's okay. They said, we have a place we can send them. So they sent them to CUFO's. And this, they had them there for a little while and we never heard back. And we also, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because I want to talk about when this happened and what we did. Yeah. And then I'm not sure how Robert Engberg worked for ENGBERG. He worked for CUFOS and MUFON, and he showed up at our house. And I don't know how, like maybe I don't know how, maybe when we called because we called the police, I mean, the paper was there and we're trying to figure out what's going on, like what did we just witness? What are these artifacts? So Robert did come and he sat down with my mother and I and went out and took pictures, and we trusted him because he's from CUFOS, reputable. We didn't know what CUFOS was. I didn't know what MUFON was or any of that. And he took the piece with him and he said he'd have it analyzed and he'd get back to us.
And for anyone who's listening who doesn't know, CUFOS is Center for UFO Studies.
Center for UFO Studies in Chicago, Illinois. So then time goes by and we don't hear from Robert. The University of Minnesota, they say, no, they're out of our hands. They're at CUFOS. And we don't hear back. So my mother writes, and I have this letter in my book, and I actually forgot about that letter. My mother wrote a letter to CUFOS. She got found out the information, and she wrote the letter in March of 1982. So this happened February 10th. My mother wrote the letter March and sent it off to CUFOS and saying, what happened to our pieces? We have a right to know, as God is my witness. And we never heard back from them either.
Julie, really quick, I hear something kind of banging around a little bit.
Oh,
is there something?
Or my cat.
Oh,
yeah. I was trying to get the cat out of the way. Yeah.
No, we're cat friendly.
This is the first time one of my cats have bothered me. Yeah. Okay. So anyway,
that's funny.
After that, it was like, what happened? We these pieces that we trusted to CUFOS and the University of Minnesota and Robert Engberg working for them, we don't hear from anybody. And the phone number that Robert gave us, he never answered it. He never returned our calls. So, and then just day after day, week after week, month after month, finally years, the whole thing just kind of fizzled out. It was like, wow, that was pretty. We seen something so extraordinary. We had pieces, and now we have no information on it.
Did you talk to anybody else who knew Robert and tried to reach him through other means, or?
My mother was, she was a housewife. She didn't drive, she wasn't real. I mean, we didn't have like computers, and stuff like that. It wasn't like the technology and stuff we have today. We tried, even in my book, we have my mother saved Northwestern Bell. That's what we had back then, 1982. My mother even saved the phone bill calling, CUFOs in Chicago, Illinois, and I put that in the book. So we waited and we just never heard anything. So we just, and the pieces that I got, my mother's sister put them in her safe. So at least we have the pieces that we have left in a safe. Mm-hmm. And we just went on with our lives because nothing happened. I mean, it was just, it is what it was. And it was pretty sad. And we felt taken advantage of and everything, but my mother and I got to experience that, and that was wonderful. So now the crazy thing is, and my mother passed away in January of 2018. And then December 2019, I get a letter in the mail, and it's from MUFON. And they want to know if I am the girl from 1982 that witnessed this encounter. Mm. And I called, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. I had the chills when I got that letter. So I reached out to MUFON, and I said, I am that person. And so I met with MUFON, and they said, well, Julie, I just had to plug that in. We could find out, some information, like what happened to the pieces. So MUFON they did an investigation, on their own, and they got back to me and they said, Julie, we found out, we heard back from Mark Rodinger from CUFO, Center of UFO Studies. And he said that, and I've got the letter, and all this is in my book. We don't have any evidence of any pieces coming here from the University of Minnesota. However, we do have your mother's letter from 1982, March of 1982, wanting to know where the pieces were. So they have my mother's letter pleading for the pieces, but they don't have any record of getting any. And the University of Minnesota, believe me, after all this happened, I tried to reach out to the University of Minnesota again, and they said, Julie, I'm sorry, that was so long ago. It's not even in the archives, because I'm like, do you have any record of this at all? Yeah. And they didn't. But to make a long story short, they did have the letter, and I got that letter back, and I actually forgot about that letter, and I was really surprised to get it back because again, this happened when I was 18, and I forgot that my mother wrote the letter, and now I got my mother's letter back, and I couldn't remember what this guy's name was, this Robert Engberg, but when he did our investigation and took our piece, on the letter, my mother wrote his name, and Robert even signed it. And so when I got that letter back from that CUFOs reached out to, MUFON reached out to CUFOs, there was his name on the bottom, Robert Engberg. I'm like, aha, it's 39 years later, I finally have this guy's name. So it took me about 3 months to track him down, and I did find him. And I ended up meeting with Robert, and we met at a diner, but before I met him, I asked him, I need whatever happened to that piece that we gave you, that we trusted you with. Yeah. And he said, oh, Julie, that was so long ago. And what I got out of Robert is that he just kept it for himself, and he really didn't do anything with it. And I don't know why or whatever, but he did meet with me, and he did find him. It took him 2-3 months to find it because he said he moved around and he had it in a safe. And so I did meet him in Mora at a diner, and that was June of 2021. And in my book, I have the letter of transmittal that he gave me. And do you have that? I have that right here. So this is actually from Robert Engberg. You can see that. And here he This is all his,
Notation,
saying that he
investigative notes.
released
Mhm.
this back to me.
Oh, I
So,
see. Okay.
yeah. So this document is to transfer referenced evidence to your total custody and control, June 15th, 2021.
So
So I did
he
go
at
back.
least did that, but did he answer why there wasn't any follow through with testing and other materials and getting?
Well, he did say he doesn't know. He knew that some pieces went to the University of Minnesota. He couldn't explain that. He said that he left Kufos and he went to MUFON. And then he just kind of moved around, and he was an engineer. And he basically, to be honest, Alan, he just apologized. I mean, he had his head down and everything. He's like, Julie, I'm so sorry. And at first, when I got a hold of him, he kind of like ignored me a little bit. And I said, listen, I'm talking with Jacques Vallée and Paula Harris. He's like, you're talking to who? And I said, well, they want to know what's, I told them my story, and they're really interested in it. And then all of a sudden he had a whole different mindset, and he found the piece. He couldn't find the documents. He had a file about our case. And in fact, in my book, I have Paula Harris forwarded my book. Did you know that?
Oh,
If
yeah. Well, for
Yeah,
everybody listening, it was when I
yeah,
was talking to Paula Harris, she was the one that recommended having you
yes,
on the program. Yeah,
right,
and
yes,
so there is certainly credence for anybody listening to that, because if you think about the fact that right now, the Biden administration has opened the door on a alleged 1945 UFO crash near the Trinity site, and that's because of the work of Paula and Jacques
yes,
Vallée. And so,
yes,
there's something to be said about speculation. There's something to be said about reaching and wanting to believe, and then there's Paula Harris and Jacques Vallée. Even if
exactly.
something sounds out there, they'll do their due diligence and decide whether it's worth investigating. And so the fact that they took you seriously and your report seriously, to me, that holds a lot of water.
Absolutely. And so I get my, I meet with Robert, like I said, at the diner in Mora, and we talk not 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And then after that, we went to a park and we talked some more. I mean, I think I spent a total of 4 hours with Robert. He was so, apologetic. And I mean, and I didn't hold anything against him. You know what I mean? Hey, it happened. It is what it is. Let's move on. And then sadly to say, Robert Ingberg passed away. And he was with
Mm.
MUFON and KUFOS for a long time. And he had a sudden heart attack, like I said, 3 months later. And but when I met him at the diner, and he took, because I remember the box when I was 18 when we were sitting at our kitchen table, and I remember that perfectly round ring. We gave him a really, probably the best piece that we got. And I remember, the same box that Robert put it in, and he even put it in here. I'm going to grab it real quick. The box. So Robert has it. He puts it in this box, and this was 40 years ago. Okay, so I get this back June of 2021, and he sets this box on the, we're at the diner, and he sets it on the table, and he's filling out this release of transmittal that he gave me. And I'm like, oh, my piece better be in there, because I know what it looks like. I'll never forget.
Mm.
And when I took the cover off and there it was like I started bawling and crying. I had so much emotion to it, because this was something that was so, my mother and I got to witness something so miraculous, so glorious. It was
Mm.
just out of this world. And I get this back, and I mean, it's there, I have the cover off and I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, wow. I was very emotional that day when I got this back. And Alan, I'm
Can
going to
you?
show you something on this box. It's growing some type of silvery. I should even
Oh,
have my gloves on, but
I
it's
I, I
not
see.
mold.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's growing some type of silvery metallic. I don't know
Well,
what it
for
is, but
for everybody listening, it's almost like a calcification kind of a, or like when you see copper turn color, but it's granular. There's texture to it.
there's texture to it.
Hmm.
Yes. And, I don't know.
So
And
there's
it doesn't
clearly some
have like
sort
a
of
old
chemical.
mold smell or any of that. And he had it in a
Right.
safe. So, I mean, how, I don't know.
I,
And
I, w- I would definitely not touch that with my bare hands, although I guess
I
you have already.
have,
So yeah.
I know, but I've of course touched it that day he gave it to me and I'm
Hmm.
still alive, but I do have a
So
glove.
so
Yeah,
that's the box. Can you describe, especially for people listening, what the actual sample, the material artifact looks like?
sure. I could show it right now.
Okay, sure, yeah. And if you can
Yeah.
also help us describe it for the listeners, that'd be great
And
too.
I do have a glove on now.
Okay, good. I feel
Yes.
better.
Yes.
And
Exactly right. Because you just don't know. I mean, is this something from the government or is this something from extraterrestrial? We just, that I
well,
want to know.
that's something that comes up a lot with these retrieved evidence. Okay, here we go.
Okay. So here is one of the pieces that shot out of that craft. And this burned um, probably about 4 inches down in the snowbank.
Hmm.
And it's got
And
like a, I don't
it's
even know, like,
it's cylindrical. My guess is that's about like 3/4 to half an inch thick. And the do you know what the diameter of the empty space around the border is?
oh, I just dropped it. Oh my gosh. It did not break. Oh, thank God. Oh, yeah. This is why I hate to I hate to take this out.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, can you're yeah, holding with your glove
I
so I can
gotta
see.
hold the tweezers tighter, or maybe I should
Yeah,
just
yeah.
hold it with my finger.
Or the glove, yeah, but
Yeah.
okay.
So, and
So
then
it
you
it
can see. I'm gonna
it,
put it back
it
down, and I'm gonna
almost
show you something.
sure it almost looks like, just so everybody know, it looks like a almost like a lens, what you would put on a camera to block light.
And
Okay.
it has a lot of layers to it.
Hmm.
A lot of layers to it, and it's black inside.
Okay. Is it
Um,
charred or
Charred. Yeah.
it's charred? Okay.
I'm gonna hold it a different way so you can see how charred it is.
Hmm. And
I'm
now
just
you
gonna
weren't
use
you
my
weren't the
glove.
only witness to this.
No.
Um, yeah, I can see that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had to take a best guess, like just looking at it, having experienced it, what is it? Metallic? Is it some kind of composite material?
Composite mean like hard?
Like a mixture of materials,
Yeah, it
to
doesn't
create.
seem like it's just one thing. It is like a mixture. And it's
Mhm.
about the size of a 50-cent piece. And the other rings that I have are only half rings. And the other ones are literally black all the way through and they're charred and they're shiny. And this one is the only one that had a little bit left of this, the brown on it. You see that?
I see the brand. That looks like that might be the original color. Is that what
That
you?
could be.
Okay, and then there's the white. Now is the white an effect of
It's like an ash.
an ash? Okay, that's what I was wondering. Yeah.
Yes.
So I have a question here from Jingus in YouTube chat, and they ask, does it have some weight to it?
No, it's very lightweight.
Okay,
Very lightweight.
and you dropped it and it didn't crack, so
Nope.
clearly it's not as like a
Oh
eggshell
yeah,
form.
it's not
Right.
like delicate, like, like, because I only dropped it you're just right in front of me on the table here. But oh, I didn't even want to do that because now there's a little bit of ashes on the table, and yeah, I want to keep even the ashes with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Has
So
has there any been kind of spectral analysis of it? Any sort of scanning that you're aware of?
no, nothing has been done with
Nothing was
this.
done. Okay.
No, nothing has been done with this, and that's why I'm trying to work on that right now. And you mentioned Gary Nolan, or we could move on. I don't know. I mean, I know it's going to be very expensive to test, and I don't want it destroyed. I mean, I would even keep this intact, and the other pieces that I have, I
Hmm.
would give those up to let them take a look at them and find out, do the analysis and try to figure out what they are. Either they're from the government or they're from extraterrestrial. And I know what I seen, but it's one or the other.
So when these pieces came out of this cylindrical craft, they kind of spread out. Was it kind of like buckshot, just kind of?
Yeah, let me take off this glove. So when so it was a lime green light, and I when I was kneeling on the bed looking at this light, I tried to look inside to see if there was, like anything dark in that light, and there wasn't. It was just a solid green light. And my mother and I were so baffled because we're like, how could a solid green cigar-shaped light, 40, 50 feet long, shoot out fireballs? Literally and they didn't come down straight. They came at an angle. All of them came at an angle. That's why they were in the road. That's where they were in our yard, and they were across the street, and they were in the pond. They were just all over. But they came out like equal. You know what I mean? It wasn't like one over here or one over there. The way that this shot down, it was like 3 this way, 3 that way. I mean, when you're watching, and this was a light show. Like, I'm telling you, if this was summer, I think our woods would have been on fire, because you got this craft shooting down flames with a tail on them, and they're burning these things into the snowbank. If we didn't have the winter, I think we would have had a fire. And my one witness, Angie, and her story is in my book. She was coming home from work at midnight. She worked at a bar restaurant, and she had to pull her car over because she lived right behind our house, like maybe about a block or so. And so she witnessed this from her car, and she tells her in her own words in my book, she tells, what she witnessed. And you could watch the landscape of the trees and everything just light up. It was like it was big. I mean, it was a lot going on. And I did think there was going to be a fire, like something, but it was just, it just happened. Everything happened so fast, and they just shot down, and those embers burned. And I then snuck out. I put a jacket on, and I snuck outside. I was scared, but my adrenaline, I just wanted to get out there and see where these little rings had been, burnt out. And Roland, my father, he said, Julie, don't go out there. That could be radioactive. So I did come back in, and then we waited because we didn't go to bed that night at all. My mother called her sisters, the neighbors, the police. We called everybody. I mean, none of us went back to bed because what we seen was just so miraculous. But I didn't get to tell you the part when my mother, oh shoot.
What happened?
Yeah, I just got one of those ashes off my screen, my computer here. One of the ashes, and I dropped that.
You have to be really careful with that.
I know.
Yeah. You don't want to lose evidence.
I know. No. It's okay. It was just a little drop. But anyway, Roland was downstairs sleeping on the couch when this happened. So my mother and I are in the upstairs window, looking out, and we can hear him screaming downstairs. He's like, June, get down here. There's a UFO out there. I mean, he's down there screaming, and we're up there and just blocking him out because we know he's right below us. So we're looking at, if you look at that house picture again, there's a patio window. Yeah. So right above my head, there's a patio window down there, and that's what he was looking out. And we're right above him. So we're watching the same thing. So I just wanted to show you that with the 2 windows, but it was really something. And a lot of our neighbors seen it. We have a lot of witnesses, and unfortunately, this was 40 years ago, and Mr. Steiner, he's gone. Mrs. Mahoney, she's gone. But Angie, like I said, she put her testimony and what she witnessed in the book. And there was a sighting when Joe Toohey from the White Bear Press, came out to our house. He says, Julie, he told my mom and I that there was the same green light was seen, witnessed on it was Bald Eagle Lake. And that lake is not too far. That was over by White Bear Lake. So White Bear, Matamidi, very close. So there was,
And you do have, and Jingus makes a good comment that there are airfields nearby too. But based on your description of the craft, I mean, if I were forced to try to come up with a conventional explanation, the only thing I could imagine is something like a dirigible, but vertical, right? So that and it would have to be pretty thin. And we didn't have drones.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
This was something that I'm telling you, it was so majestic. I mean, it was, you have this long cigar shaped green light hovering
Yeah.
and then
Uh-huh.
lowering. And then
Right.
when it lifted, it did this, and then it shot up, and then it shot those down. And
Mhm.
then after those fireballs got shot down and landed in the snow, now we're looking down and looking at all this. And then all of a sudden, that light went to the right at like an 80-degree angle in 1, 2, 3 seconds. It was gone. And that's when I wished I was outside, because, oh my gosh, just so now, I mean, you're looking out the windows and it went this way, but
Mhm.
you can't, look, you're in a house.
Right.
So it's just, and it left all that, the embers, like these things burning there, and it melting into the snow. It
And
was
and the
just,
around it, is that evaporated?
that's ashes. That's all
So
ash.
so the border there where the edge of the snow ends, is that because of the heat of it?
The heat of it, yes.
That's intense.
I know. It is. And did I ever give you any more of the pictures that I have?
Let's see what else. I had the book. I have no, I don't think.
These are actual pictures, and we put all these in a photo album because what we seen, was just so bizarre.
Okay,
But I'm going to show you.
full screen. Okay.
This is my mother and I, and these are some of the pieces that, now remember, this is after the University of Minnesota
Mhm.
took some, and then
Okay. I can see
actually
this.
the piece that I just showed you, I think it's that one right there. That big one sitting there.
It
Although
looks
we
very
had two big ones
similar.
like
Yeah.
that. Now
Okay.
look, if I get a little bit closer, you can see see how they're all round.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this here is a 50-cent piece. The paper said it was a quarter, but the
I see. Okay.
yeah, the newspaper guy put a quarter on the plate too. Actually, you know what? I think Robert did that. He put a quarter on the plate, but I mean, a 50-cent piece on the plate. He did one of those, but it was as big as a 50-cent piece.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that what you're showing there looks very similar to
Yeah.
this, which is
They
also
were
very
all pretty
similar.
much the same size, nothing different.
Julie, I mean, you do realize that, if this craft was not man-made, that what you have in your hand is extraordinary.
Right. I know that.
Yeah.
And I want the world to know. I really do. I just don't want it to just leave it sit here and not. Yes, it's very precious and sentimental because my mother's not here, she's passed. And I got this piece back after 39 years. I mean, wow, just getting that back after all these years was just, like I said, it was so heartfelt and emotional.
Yeah. And
This is my mother. I took a picture of my mother. She's outside. See all the snow we had?
Mm-hmm.
She is outside, and we heated our house with 2 fire, wood stoves. So we went out with the shovels from the wood stove to go in the snowbanks and collect these pieces. So this, like I said, this is an actual picture of 1982 of her out there looking at it, looking for him.
Yeah.
And then I have, well, you already showed that one. Oh, and then this is one here where we're pointing on the street. It even left, this is the road, and it even left marks into the road where, the cars drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see that?
I do. So,
Yeah.
when upon reporting it, was any on-site physical trace evidence taken besides these pieces? Like, did anyone, scrape the ground and collect soil samples?
No, I think back then, I think that this, to be truly honest, Alan, if this happened today, I think it would have been so more professionally, been taken serious, and this would have been a big thing. You know what I mean? Like back then, yeah. I mean, and I did say, I even have this in my book. Our road did get roped off, and I can't remember if Robert. You got to get my brain to think back 39 years, because the road, we had a back alley way to our house, so you could still get around our house if you went around the alley. But The road did get roped off for about 2 days, where they put that, on both sides of the house that you showed, because we didn't want cars coming through there when some of this evidence is in the road, and stuff.
And
So, and that's
who lives
too,
there?
yeah, what?
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, so we were still looking for those 2 days. We're still looking for pieces, but unfortunately, we got a lot of snow the next day, and I'm sure a lot of these pieces went into the pond. And I'm in a very wooded rural area in a valley, down below in a valley, and then we have a lake next to us. And I don't know if you know about this too, and I maybe I showed you or told you. There was also another sighting reported from UFO Cat the same night as mine, and it wasn't our sighting. And it said February 10th, 1982, Willerny, UFO underwater. Wow. Underwater. Now it's winter. It wasn't ours. We have our UFO document that, when MUFON got a hold of me, they found mine. But they also found this other one, UFO Cat or whatever it's called, with somebody saying that there was a UFO underwater.
So did they describe the UFO, or they couldn't see it because it was underwater?
We don't know who did this or whatever. It's just a report that we got from UFO Cat. It's just a report, and we don't know who reported it. And but it has a number on there, like a 18, what it has a number. So if somebody could look up that number, maybe they could find out who reported that.
The case number?
Yeah, the case number. I actually have that.
Do you have that? Do you mind texting? I'd be happy to look that up.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, we didn't report anything going under the water.
Yeah,
so.
that's kind of what I'm enjoying right now with MUFON, doing a little bit of like the online sleuthing too, and trying to find matching cases or similar events around the same time period. And it's the further you go back, it just gets far more complicated and obscure. But it is a fun endeavor to kind of go down that road. So another suggestion from Genghis. Thanks, Genghis. You're on fire tonight. Who owns the property now, and is it possible to go back, do some metal detecting, and
absolutely
or to try and take samples, like
and you're talking 40 years later, but I could show you. I remember where those pieces fell. I could tell you. I could show you, because I'm looking out the second store window, the bedroom window, and I know where they. I mean, there's probably more fell that the ones that we shot out that we got. I know there was more. I know, because it was just, it was a firestorm. It really was. And like I said, these things shot out, and they had a ball and they had a tail to them. And look it's winter and the ground is frozen, and it's burning holes in the snow. It's literally, or melting the snow, not burning holes, but melting deep into the snow. So
right. And
we don't live in that house anymore. My mother passed away, and I had to sell the house, but I know the guy that lives there now. Paula Harris flew out here. Jacques Fillet was supposed to fly out with her, but he couldn't, because that was right when COVID started. But Paula still came, and I took her to the house, and she took pictures, and we knocked on the door, and the guy was a little leery, like, oh boy, I don't know what's going on here. But now I become friends with him. I told him what had happened. I told him I wrote a book, and he said, Julie, you can come here anytime. You can, look out the second store window if you want again. He said, you can come in my yard. Yeah. So I got a pretty good, I think he would let us go in the yard, and then the road is the road, that's, anybody can go there. And then the pond is still there, but I think that would be a good idea. But I mean, it's 40 years, but you just never know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you have people in mind already out there that are investigators?
No.
Oh, okay.
You mean that would do something like this?
Yeah, that would go out with you, and you and maybe Paola if she gets out there again.
No, well, I would have to. I don't even. I mean, I'd have to buy. I thought you were talking about, could we go?
Oh,
so I said, yeah, I'll take you there.
Yeah, that's quite a flight.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. I would love to if I'm there, but
if somebody wanted to do that, they could easily do that. I mean, you never know what you could. And I don't know, Alan. I don't know if this is a metal. I've never said it's a metal. I don't know what it is.
That's interesting. Yeah,
right. It's so lightweight. It has a lot of layers to it.
Yeah.
and you can tell that they're like on the edge. There's like a line, like a ring, a perfect line, like a ring around the top of it on each side. So
Right.
I don't know,
Oh,
but
so
it's
what are
pretty
your
interesting.
so right now you're kind of in a place where you're trying to decide who to trust, where to go to
Yes,
next.
I want somebody I can really trust because this is such a part of me,
Hmm.
and it's my baby. I got to just, you know what I mean? I'm so emotionally tied to it. And especially, getting that back after, like I said, 39 years and what I had to
Yeah.
do to get back and the phone calls and trailing this guy down. And, so,
And
um,
for
but
everybody listening, we were talking. You and I were talking earlier, Julie. You actually don't keep that in your home. You have a
oh
safe
no.
place, a secret
Yeah,
safe
it goes,
place
yeah,
off your property, right?
yeah, yeah, it does not stay in our house. Absolutely
Hmm.
not. I would not be, no,
I
it's
mean,
got a safe place.
there are preliminary easy things that you could do. I mean, if you can, purchase one yourself or ask someone who might have one, get a Geiger counter, right? And at least just start collecting a little bit of evidence here and there, because maybe it's not, too high in the range, but if it spikes a little bit, there are watches or lights and lamps that were made in the early 1900s that have radon in them, and these kind of radioactive isotopes. And so you can actually get a Geiger counter and compare and contrast and like test these things next to this, and then text it next to your desk and ordinary items, and get a sense, is it a little bit off the standard background radiation where you live? And that would be a really simple test to do.
Well, yeah, I just have to find out how to do that. But and again, I just got this piece back in, June of 2021. And then Paula Harris encouraged me. She said, Julie, you've got to write a book. And I was already starting to write the book about my dark secrets and hidden lies, the trauma and stuff that I grew up with, and my encounter I had at 8 years old.
Hmm.
And she said, all that needs to go in your book. And I'm like, I have no skills to write a book, or whatever, but I did it. And I'm really proud of myself that I did do it, because this story being rekindled gave me so much drive. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got my peace back. My mother, if she could just be here to witness all this, she would just be, I know she's watching me. She's seeing what's going on here. But I'm going to also share with you, and MUFON was involved with this too. Do you have the picture of when I was 8 years old, what I experienced?
I don't have that picture.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
No. Charles, thank you for the correction. It wasn't radon, it's radium. Were
Oh,
in the old
radium.
watches, radium. Yep.
What
Thanks,
is
Charles.
radium different than radon? What is that different?
Well, it's a different element. So,
Did he say
or
somebody
isotope,
died?
but
He
yeah,
said,
because in the factories, it was mostly women that were making these watches, and they were using
oh,
their bare hands, and they were getting constant exposure, physical exposure to a highly radioactive material.
oh,
Yeah.
oh
And
boy.
and if I believe historically, Charles, that was the beginning of the eventual lawsuits and whatnot that led to more oversight in the factory workers and job sites. It was kind of part of that era. Um, yeah. Do you have the picture that you were talking about when you were younger, or
Oh, yes. I thought I gave that to you, but because I was thinking that you could just put that up on the. Um, yes. So MUFON, they said, Bill McNeff, he's from MUFON and he lives in Minnesota. And he said, Julie, have you ever had any other experiences in your life? And I said, I did, Bill. I had one at 8 years old. And in my little, I lived in, well, the house that I witnessed this at was 510 Killarney. But the house that we lived in when I was little was also in Willerny, and it was on Kindross Road. And I was 8 years old. And I told Bill, I said, my brother and I were in the bedroom on the bottom bunk. And I'm not sure who was up on the top bunk. I come from a family of, I have 5 siblings. And my parents were not home. They were up at the bar. My mother was in a pool league. Anyway, I'll never forget this, because I was laying in bed and I was singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And my brother, he was 7, Ron, and he put his hand over my mouth, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he said, look. And so we're on the bottom bunk, and then here is the doorway to the bedroom, and we didn't have a door on that bedroom door. We just didn't have a door. And then his hand is over my mouth, and he tells me to look, and I'm like, what am I looking at? And then what my eyes locked onto is there is this is what I drew. This is what I saw. Here it is. This was standing in our entryway, and I didn't know what the his feet or legs look like because I'm on a bottom bunk, and the projection I'm at, I can only see this.
So it looks like an odd hybrid between, like, it has very high cheekbones, almost dwarf-like, but not really. It has pointy ears. Is that hair that it had?
No, I thought it was pointy ears or I didn't know if it was a hat he had on or pointy ears. And I did get a good look at it because behind the bunk bed was a window, and I could literally throw a rock to the bar. That's how close where my parents were at that, the Flame Bar. And that was what it was called, the Flame Bar. And the light from their parking lot would shine in, and it would shine. So it shined right into that doorway entryway. And I know what I was looking at. My brother put the blanket over his head, and I locked eyes with this. It was like when I looked at it and stared at it, yeah, I was scared and I was trembling. I could feel him shaking, with the blanket over him. He had this, whatever he was, to me it was a leprechaun, but he had black shiny. It's definitely not. I say he because or it, whatever, but black shiny eyes, and it's like they pulled me in, and I'm staring at it, and I don't even think my eyes blinked. I literally just had this contact with him, and I can't even explain it to you. It was so odd. It was like whatever this was looking through me, and I was looking. This lasted for like a minute, and then I opened and closed my eyes a few times, and then it was gone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what was that? But my brother saw it. I saw it. So then the crazy thing is, I'm telling this to Bill McNeff from MUFON, and he said, because I sent this to him in email, and he said, Julie, oh my gosh, hold on. And I'm like, okay. And I'm sorry, I thought you had that one piece.
That's all right. And just a general question: before the whole event occurred, what were you doing right before that?
I was just laying in bed, ready to fall asleep, and I was singing "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star." That's I was in bed. I'm going to show you. I thought I had this.
Well, that's all right. If you can't find it, we can describe it.
This is very crucial that you see this because that's why I thought you had it. Because Bill McNeff says, Julie, I'm going to send you something. So Bill sends me a picture from 2 military guys that were abducted in 1969, and it is exactly what I seen. And Bill's like, Julie, oh my gosh. He said, you didn't see an alien. He says, you have the drawing is the same of what these military guys experienced. And it's identical, pretty much identical. It's bone chilling, really. Oh gosh, I feel I've never been unorganized. I thought for sure I gave you that. But Tom, will you come look for this it's my husband's. He says it's in the book. Of course. I'm not even thinking of my book. It's in the book. Thank you. Tom, thank you so much.
Do you know what page it's on?
No, but I'll get to it. It's not a very... Yeah, here it is. So now, how can I make this up? I give Bill my sighting, what I see. Bill gives me this. Wait, I got to get it right where...
Okay, I see it. Yep.
I got to go here.
There you go, right there. Yep.
Look it.
Now I get a much better sense. Okay.
Yeah, and this is from 1969. And I said, Bill, oh my God, I know what I drew,
wow.
For you. I said, but that's what I seen, that guy right there. I mean,
So what do you think its relationship is to?
I had a lot of pain and trauma. Um, it's kind of hard to explain because I know everybody's interested in the UFO realm and all that,
Mhm.
but that's why I have two titles on my book, My Dark Secrets and Hidden Lies and the 1982 Learning UFO Case, because these two titles mirror and connect. I had so much trauma. I was not it's kind of hard to even get into this. I found out that Roland was not my father. I'm a middle child, and he always threw me out of the house when he would come home drunk because he knew I wasn't his daughter.
Mm.
And this is why I made my book cover like this. Do you see? This
Yeah.
portrays me. That's supposed to be a little girl underneath a street light.
Mhm.
Because when he would throw me out of the house, the street light in our yard where this UFO came, that was my safe place. I would under the blanket of the stars. I spent so much time when he'd come home and throw me out, and he would lock my mom in the house. Then my relatives would my mom would call my her sister and my uncle, and they would have to come pick me up 1, 2, 3 in the morning. And this is where that UFO, this is where that light came to under that, right where that street light was. Yes, at this time I was in the house and I witnessed it, but this UFO came to this, to my safe spot where I always was. And I believe that something was watching me. Just like when this little guy came when I was 8 years old, I got struck in the face 2 days before that.
Mhm.
And my father ended up going to jail. And I went and hid in the closet, that same bedroom. And I said, oh, I prayed to God. I just said, whatever, somebody needs to help me. Somebody needs to be listening. I'm a little girl. I wanted help from something, or I just pleaded for
Sure.
something
Yeah.
or somebody to help me. And that's when this little guy came. It really was like a day later, 2 days
Wow.
later. I mean, it was right around that same time.
So is there a relationship, or are they just a coincidental around the same time?
Oh,
The
when this
UFO.
happened and when I
Mhm.
went into the closet,
Yeah.
yeah, like a day or two. I mean, it was just, this came right away. I can't explain it. To me, I felt like it knew what I was going through and it sensed what I was going through, and
Mhm.
my eyes locked with it.
Was
Yeah,
it like there was no space between your minds? Is that what it was like, or?
again, I was 8, but I just remember it. To me, I wasn't afraid of it. It just, just that I can't even explain it. To me, it was like a magnet. Like I just remember, laying there. I mean, looking at it, and it just kind of pulled. I can't explain it, but it kind of pulled me in.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? Like we connected, and my brother did this, but I mean, he got to see. He was looking at it first,
Right.
and then it
Yeah.
was gone. So is there something with that light, is that I
Right.
seen at 18? Is there something with this? Are they connected? Are they not connected? um that this was also, this light came, my Roland only had like less than a week to live in the house before he had to move.
Mhm.
So to me, to my mother and I, this was like a finality thing. It's over. She doesn't have to have any more abuse and trauma anymore. I didn't have to have any abuse and trauma anymore because we both had it. And I just, talk about a lot of things that happened in the book and stuff. So to us,
So
it was a finality. It's over. We're done. We're free,
wow.
like with all of it. I mean,
So
this is the
that's
feeling I get. And this is what I feel. And this is why I wrote the book.
right, and this is something that fascinates me so much. So this was almost instantaneous transformation? Is that really like you just did it change how you saw things? Did you just change
Yes.
how you felt, or?
I oh gosh, I like I said, my childhood was so traumatic, but just when this, whatever it was, came, I felt like, oh my gosh, like that was my, almost a protector. I mean, whatever. I mean, it was something was there and knew, I felt like it knew what I was going through and I connected with it. And even that light at 18, and isn't it something that where I got thrown out of the house all the time and had to sit under the streetlight waiting for my relatives to pick me up to take me to their house.
Yeah.
This is where, and this is the same time my mother and father are going through a divorce, and he's got to be out, Roland even got to see it. He's down below, and we're up above, and this happened, and my mother truly believes that, and I do too. We believe that what we got to witness was a gift, and we were even given pieces. And I want to share the pieces I have with the world. I mean, I don't know what they are or what they are not. I don't know. I mean, but I'm willing to. And like I said, I just got this piece back after 39 years. It's too bad that we got taken advantage of when this did happen when I was 18, and that the people didn't do what they were supposed to do, and find out, do their analysis. I mean, the University of Minnesota did try, but they did send them off. So
I think that you're right. There's certainly more transparency because there's more eyes on the subject. You have numerous shows, independent investigation organizations. You have also the government. Sure, you have privatized organizations, and now you can also be very public. And being sometimes public, while it can expose you and make you vulnerable in some ways, it could potentially protect you in other ways. So I wish you luck on getting tests for this done, and that you find the right people that you can trust. And like I've said before, like if they're testing somewhere, go there, be there with the materials, make that a prerequisite. Just say that's it. If you want to test this, I need to be present.
Oh yes, I definitely want to be present, unless I can really trust the person or the organization that would be testing.
Even then, like, okay, so like I was saying before with the Sakura case, there were little flakes that were taken by a trusted party to a laboratory, and still it wasn't the trusted party that placed the evidence. It was someone else within the the NASA administration, it would seem. So the point is just be really careful, trust people, but also #trust no one at the same time.
Right.
So it's a healthy balance to try to stay with. But I do want to really quick, because I know we're going overtime.
Okay.
That the creature that you saw, was that, like, in that moment, that was transformational for you? That changed your outlook and your trauma? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am still like this to this day. It's like I can't explain it, but I'm always worried about, like, if somebody's having a pain or trauma or hurting, whatever. I can go into a store and walk by people, and I can pick up on emotions and stuff. I can't explain it, and I'm one to give my shirt off my back to anyone, and I just feel, sadly to say, all my siblings that I grew up with have all turned to drugs, and they are not living a good life. And to me, that's really sad. And I mean, I can't change them. They're their own person. I pray for them, but what can you do? But to me and my mother, to us, this was such a gift. And I just felt that I have somebody watching and protecting. And I just feel like this whole thing made me a better person. I even put that in my book. It made me a better person. And I got to experience this with my mother, something so miraculous, and even get pieces of it. And it's just, it's sentimental to me.
It's astounding.
Yeah, and I'm just starting this journey. I'm just starting this journey because we're going to find out what this is.
Right.
And wouldn't this be something if I held the Holy Grail? I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, Alan, it's one or the other. It's something man-made from the government, or it's not. It's
and based on the account, if it was a government technology, that's quite phenomenal, especially for 1982.
Yeah.
So
why would they want to come see Julie at 510 Killarney?
Somebody went, well, maybe someone went for a joyride. I don't know, but oftentimes I think extraterrestrials are just going for a joyride, and entertaining themselves with our befuddlement. But
One
Julie,
thing,
yeah,
they
sure.
say that they're attracted to people that have trauma. I've heard this from so many people now. I mean, so many have told me that, and I'm like,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, well, see, that's what's really interesting is that yes, we think in terms of the paranormal as these, scary, frightening experiences, mysteries in the dark.
Hmm.
But I feel like it, you know, 70% plus more of the time, these experiences um, are transformational, and they don't have to be traumatic in the experience themselves. Like you had, that wasn't actually a traumatic experience; it was just an encounter that was like paradigm shifting for you, and oddly therapeutic. But there are psychedelic experiences where people encounter beings,
Hmm.
really odd, like beings and creatures, uh anthropomorphological entities,
Hmm.
and that are like chimeras and all these weird things, and people come out of it overcoming trauma or PTSD or whatever have you. So, um, do you think that it's possible that your mind opened up to another realm, and
Yes.
that's where
I
this came
mean,
from?
yeah, and I'm a Christian. I even put in my book that in Genesis 1:1, God created He says He created the heavens and the earth, and He put have there's a S on that, heavens. So heavens, okay. So what's out there? We just don't know.
Mhm.
There's so much that we don't know. We're just,
Yeah,
but whatever this is, I mean, it just to me was something. To me, it was a gift. What the sighting that we seen was truly a gift, and then to even get the pieces, and like I said, to witness this with my mother, we've talked about it for so long, and it's just a miracle. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, and
Well,
it's very
thank you for
sentimental.
sharing. Yeah, thank
Hmm.
you for sharing it, and
Yeah,
I wish you the best on your journey,
thank
and
you.
I hope you get answers. If you want to
Yes,
leave us with just one thought, it could be about anything, doesn't have to be about the topic. Leave us with one thought. What would it be?
peace on this earth and goodwill
All
to
right.
all of us, and let's all just get along, and um, let's stay in contact, Alan, because we're going to get
Sure.
this piece tested, and then we're going to tell the world.
I love it.
So
All right.
whatever it is, like I said, I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah. But thank you
Awesome.
for inviting me on the show. I really appreciate it, and thank you to everybody that's listening. I
Yes.
greatly appreciate that.
Thank you so much for
So
coming on, Julie. I really appreciate it. And if anybody wants to find out more, her book, Dark Secrets and Hidden Lies, the 1982 Willerny UFO case, is on Amazon. And
great.
the link is in the show description as well as in the top of the chat. So that's it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for the awesome questions. Thank you for the history lessons, Charles and Angel. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you all so much. And until next time, peace and love, everyone, and live in the mystery.